Welcome back, all you boys and sandwich makers out there. My name's UnkknownSoldier, and for those of you who don't know, I'm actually in the United States Air Force, and I make commentaries talking about my life in the military, and it's been a while since I've made one. I made my last one back when I played Crisis 3, still posted Crisis 3 gameplay. But in case you guys are curious about what happened throughout boot camp for me, I'll link those videos in the description below. And I left off right before I got into tech school, so that's when I'm going to start up where I left off. But before we get started with that, I just want to say thanks for 600 subscribers. That's a huge number, one step closer to 1,000. So I just want to say thanks so much, guys. You guys are all awesome. Love you. So before I got shipped to tech school, our instructor gave us all of our equipment back, like our phones, iPods, our MP3 players, and basically I spent that entire night just going through my phone, checking text messages from family members and all my friends and relatives. They're just asking me how it was, trying to reply to everyone, checking Facebook, all the Facebook messages, and people tagging me in different statuses and stuff, trying to catch up on everything. So it was a pretty long night. Around 5 o'clock in the morning, though, they came and picked us up on some buses to get ready to ship us to our tech school. They took us to an out processing center. For those of you who don't know, the basic training, or the quote boot camp for the Air Force, is actually in Lackland, San Antonio, Texas. And the tech school that I was getting shipped to was Fort Sam Houston, which is also in San Antonio. It's basically on the other side of town, so it was probably about a 20-30 minute drive at the most. Wasn't really that far. A lot of people had to travel much farther distance than I did. Some people had to drive or even get flown across the country to their tech schools. Fortunately for me, I didn't have to go that far. But before we left, they had to take us to a out processing center, and basically go through all your paperwork, make sure you were heading to the right place, because they didn't want to ship anyone to the wrong base, you know what I mean? And make sure you get on the right buses and all that fun stuff. So that took a while, and the crazy part was dragging all of your luggage with you. It was absolutely crazy, because when you come to boot camp, you come with a lot of stuff to begin with. All of your personal items, your clothing, and all that stuff. And when you go through boot camp, they give you all of your ABUs, that's what they call them in the Air Force, like your camouflage, and they give you all your dress up clothes. And obviously after you graduate boot camp, your parents, relatives can come visit you, and they can drop off all your extra clothing that you didn't want and you told them to hold on to after you graduated. So you have all this stuff with you, and you have to carry it all the way to your next base, and it's a hassle, let me tell you. So we finally get to this base, and they had us all file out to like this huge courtyard, and this building that we get to is like state-of-the-art, brand new. Like, they spent millions of dollars developing this stuff. I think it had only been made about 6 months before we got there, and like no one had even graduated the course that I was about to start. That's how brand new this program was that they're about to put us through. So it wasn't really like a tested method yet. Like, no one had been doing this for like hundreds of years, that kind of thing. And it's brand new, so we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. And this building, like I said, is huge. About 1,000 people lived in it. It was like 4 stories, and it was shaped like an M, more like a double horseshoe with the center of it connecting. And it's pretty cool, state of the art, like I said. So we finally found our rooms, empty all of our stuff up, try to get our room set up. And coming from boot camp with having to share a room with like 50 guys, and then having a room that you only had to share with one other person, it was a major relief. Having your own shower for the first time in like almost 3 months. Oh, that was the joy of having your own personal space, let me tell you. But like I said, these rooms are pretty much state of the art. They had just built this building not that long before we got there, so we had our own beds. Our own beds, And we had to go out and buy some stuff like to fill up the rooms with, but we had fridges, we had desks, microwaves. They gave us our own closets. You had your locks that you had left over from boot camp, so you pretty much left your lock on your closet door all the time. So it was like pretty much a huge lock that you could just throw food, snacks, and all that crazy stuff in there, and along with your fridge, whatever. So later on the next day, they took us to what was called the PX, or the commissary. In the Air Force, they call it the BX, but in the military, or the Army, they call it the PX. So they took us, since it was an Army base, they took us to the PX, and we went shopping for a bunch of clothes, different food items that we would need, and pretty much just stuff for class. You know, like your bed sheets, a pillow, towels, all this stuff that you didn't need throughout boot camp. You actually needed it since you were going to be living on your own and have all this mass stuff to bring with you. So we get all this stuff about a couple hours later, go back to the base and throw it all in our rooms, and they had us come back downstairs for like another debriefing session. And I'm not sure if this is exactly the same order of everything went down, but it was pretty much you know, everything before class started. So they're going to tell us what to expect with this class, and you know, if all the rumors of what we heard had been true, because what we heard was that this class was extremely hard, but we didn't know for sure. And they pretty much told us it was true. The washout rate for the class that I was about to start was about like 90%, I think is what they said. People were just failing like crazy out of it because this class was so intense. At a college or a university, it would take about 6 months to a year for the kind of training that they were about to put us through. It was extremely intense, and if you didn't have the diligence to sit down and study and just write reports and stuff all the time, you weren't going to pass if you couldn't keep up with it. And I was extremely nervous. I had never taken a college class before in my life. I didn't know what to expect, so I was asking all these people who had had college experience, and like I heard from several different people that said, like, you are screwed, like you don't stand a chance, like if you haven't had this kind of, like, you know, if you haven't had this pressure on you before to study like this, you aren't going to succeed. And I was really kind of, you know, I was really anxious and nervous to start this class. I didn't know what to expect, and they told us that it was pretty much comparable to opening a fire hydrant and letting all that water just get thrown down your throat all at one time. And I was really scared to start this. I'm not gonna lie to you. So the class started, and let me tell you, it was the hardest thing, you know, curriculum-wise that I've ever done in my life. This class pretty much required you. What you would do is, our routine in tech school was you would wake up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. You go to PT, eat breakfast around 7 o'clock. And I don't know if we started class, I think like 7:30 or 8 o'clock, and you had class till about 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So after you have class, you get out. Some people, depending on who you were, you could go work out. You could pretty much do whatever you wanted after they let you out from the mass, after school was over, whatever. And for me, though, it was just really intense. I had to basically go back to my room and study almost every single day for the first 6 weeks. Cause there was two different parts to this course. There was an EMT portion, and there was a nursing portion. The EMT lasted 6 weeks, and the nursing lasted for 2 months. And actually, for the first month that we were there, they told us that we weren't allowed to leave the base whatsoever. We didn't have base leaving privileges, and we would probably get kicked out, court-martialed, whatever, if we got caught leaving, you know, whatever. So, and I understand why now, because it was absolutely just crazy. If you were going to go out and explore the town, you were not going to pass this class. It was just that intense. And luckily for me, I had great friends that I actually met there, and they helped me get through this course. Basically, after we got out of class, I would go back to my room. I would get dinner real quick, go back to my room, and study till about midnight every single night. And actually, the second mod, the first one I passed just barely. There was 7 different mods for the EMT part, and the first mod I passed, and the second mod I had heard from other students that it was fairly easy. And I told my roommate to wake me up like a couple hours before midnight so I could study just for a couple minutes, whatever. And he never woke me up, so I woke up the next morning and I hadn't studied at all for it, so I kind of winged it and I barely failed it. And I had the option to retake it. Now I forget exactly what they said. Like you could get washed back a class and then like relearn all this curriculum again with a different class, and you'd have an extra week to retake the test. But I didn't want to do that because the people that I was with in my class were just super cool, real cool dudes. So I didn't want to do that. So I retook the test. I passed it, stayed with my class, and pretty much from that point on, I think they said if you failed 3 of the modules, or 2 or 3 of the modules, you fail the course, you get kicked out, and you have to do something else. They found a different job for you, a different AFSC. So I was really nervous. I was always on the edge and studying my butt off every single day. Like I said, I get back, and I would study till midnight, literally every night for that first 6 weeks. And it paid off. I ended up passing the rest of my modules. I took my national registry test, which is anyone in the country that wants to be nationally certified for EMT has to take this test, and it is grueling. It was something that everybody feared. And what would happen is if you failed this, actually before that, I forgot about this completely. During the 7 or the 6 weeks that you're there, you have not only your modules, you have skills that you have to practice. Like you have to go through this whole thing that, like, if you run up on someone that is like sitting on the ground, like bleeding out, you have to go through this whole process about how you break down this, like what you do to this patient, how you save their life. So you have to pretty much memorize this whole like 3 long paper essay thing about what, like, you have to say this word for word what you would do. And it wasn't like you could just memorize the words. They would change the scenario, so you'd have to know exactly what to do. Like say they got hit by a car, they get crushed by a rock, they're missing a leg, they're bleeding out of their forehead, what kind of different injuries, crazy scenarios, and you have to know how to handle this patient or whatever. And it's crazy. One time, I had studied so much for the modules that I had not been practicing my skills, is what they call it. And like the main instructor for the building, for the entire course, she came in my room when I was practicing in front of the entire class. And like I said, I hadn't been practicing, and I got called out by one of my classmates because they thought I was a really good student. They were like, "Hey, why don't we have Mitchell come in here and like show us how to do this?" So everyone's like, "Yeah, you come up here." I'm like freaking out. So I had to get up in front of the entire class and sit down and try to do this thing. Already pressure's on me, and I couldn't think. I don't want to say I got like stage fright, but I'm just like totally nervous because I didn't remember that much. Like I could kind of picture things in here and there, but like I said, I hadn't been studying it. I've been working with it. So if you haven't been doing that, you don't really know what you're doing. So I'm sitting there like looking like an idiot, and my instructor is already frustrated with me. And then the main, like the head honcho, walks in behind me, and she just starts lighting me up. Like she sits down, and she looks at me. And she's like, "Where were you?" And I'm like, and I'm kind of just lost for words. And so I kind of backtracked to where I knew how I had been, and I kind of started going over it again to make it look like I knew what I was doing. And I ended up looking like a complete dummy. She started screaming at me. It was not good. My instructor and her both sent me out in the hall, and like everyone pretty much thought I was gonna get washed back in the class because like I didn't know what I was doing, and there had been rumors or people had been previously washed back in the class for not knowing what they were doing. So I was freaking out.
Wow.
And one of the senior leadership members of the class actually came back. He came out into the hall with me and was kind of just like talking me down. Not talking me down, he was talking me through the whole thing, kind of just like, you know what you're doing, man, you know what you're doing. So he kind of walked me through it I really appreciate this guy. Just he helped me out so much throughout the entire course. Um, so he walked me through it step by step. And he's like, "See, you know what you're doing." I'm like, "Yeah, I really do know what I'm doing," you know. So I went back in there, I did it all over again. I got it perfect, and my instructor let me stay in the class, and ended up being a great time. And so what happens is at the end of the course, end of the 6 weeks, you take a skills test. We get to take a skill test for every single skill, like applying, you know, different, like a backboard, like a spinal injury, a trauma assessment, a medical assessment. Let's say a person overdosed on drugs, and you'd have to treat someone for that. Like if they're cold, you found them in a swamp, you know, you had to like apply heat blankets and warm up the ambulance for them. Crazy kind of scenarios. And for someone, like I said, who had just graduated high school, no medical experience at all, this was something just completely, you know, off the wall, random stuff for me, and along with everyone else that had been there. So, like I said, you needed to study this stuff, because if you weren't studying, you know, you're not going to pass. And I ended up passing that, got 100% on that. Took my national registry, passed that as well on my first try. And pretty much after I passed the skills, what people would do is I think registry was 3 days afterwards, and people would just cram everything they learned in those 3 days. What I did, my secret to success was going to the gym and playing basketball for 3 days without studying at all. And it was actually pretty good advice. One of the teachers said, you know, you really shouldn't study any more than you already have, because you've already crammed everything. Like, you've learned so much, there's no point in studying anything else, because you either know it or you don't. And I took it to heart. I said, you know what, you're right, I'm not going to study anymore. So that I didn't study. I went back to my room and played basketball, went to the gym, just hung out, didn't do anything. Took my test and passed, and I was so relieved. I was almost in tears of joy. I was calling everybody I knew that I had done it. Like, I didn't think I could do it. And what would happen is if you failed, you could fail up to 2 times, and if you failed, depending on what part of the test you failed, you could get washed back up to the beginning of the course. You'd have to go through that whole 6-week program all over again. And you could do that twice, so you could basically be stuck in that whole cycle for almost 3 months, just trying to pass this test. And I had people in my class that were like that hadn't passed it yet, and they were on their last attempt, and they actually passed it with me. So it was everyone in my class super excited. Obviously, there were some people that failed, but the guys that I had been roommates with, friends with, we all passed. We were just so excited, and that's pretty much the first half of my story of tech school. I'm going to talk about the rest in my next commentary, I guess. It's going to be my experience at San Antonio, experience in the base, because right after that was when I actually started going out, exploring the base, going out to the town, and having a lot of fun with my friends, you know, and actually spending more time not studying. So if you guys enjoyed this commentary, leave it a like, comment, let me know what you guys think. If the off chance if any of you are in the military, let me know. Just say what's up. And if you guys are curious about different things that happen throughout tech school, just comment. I'll answer your questions. And I promise I'm gonna keep getting back to those user created gun load outfits, guys. I promise you. Anyways, like I said, I'll catch you in the next one. Hope you guys have a nice day. Peace.